Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here. In this update, we've got several more rounds of severe storms for parts of the South over the coming days. Plus, we're going to take a look at the tropics and the extended range. So let's take a look at the overall water vapor imagery and what it may look like starting off this afternoon, and head to the Pacific Northwest because we do have a little bit of a trough that's actually dipping down in that region, bringing some actually cooler and really nice conditions up there, but in parts of just kind of sporadic light to moderate rains at times. And the same thing up here in portions of New England. They're also on the cooler side, but they also have some kind of cooler rain to work with into the afternoon as well. But in the middle of the country, you can actually see we've got convective complexes that really start to blow up in the heat of the afternoon. And that's going to be taking the formation of severe storms as we head into the, say, 4, 5, 6 o'clock time frame this afternoon. So the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center does in fact have another enhanced risk for mesoscale convective systems to blow up in the heat of the afternoon. Storms should fire around the dry line out here towards San Angelo into the Abilene region, and then run across the Dallas-Fort Worth area in between, say, 6 and 11 o'clock this evening. Plus, further to the north, we have a more intense convective mesoscale convective system kind of start originating around 8 o'clock this evening, and then a nasty squall line will be moving across Oklahoma City into the Tulsa region, and then that would start fishtailing off to the southeast. So pretty intense storms. And then further to the southeast as well, we also have instability and more severe storms and very heavy rain across portions of the Florida Panhandle. So let's rightly break down this activity depicted on the winds. So I am expecting, again, to be a fairly significant wind threat of upwards to 60 plus miles an hour. Some of these winds could approach 75 miles an hour range as they form off the Arctic dry line and move across North Texas into East Texas, but even a little bit more intense winds as they originate down from Colorado and they dive southeastward in portions of Woodward, back into Enid, cross Oklahoma City, back into Stillwater, and around the Tulsa region, into McAllister and Ada, and then that would actually fishtail down east, southeastward into the overnight time frame after midnight, crossing the Red River. More heavy winds across northeastern portions of Texas into the late overnight time frame. And then as far as the hail, we are expecting another large, if not some very large hail with these systems. So again, these are going to be originating off the dry line out here in West Texas. This is where you could see the biggest hail, some of those 2 to 3, maybe possibly even 4-inch diameter out here in West Texas. A little bit smaller, but still could be golf ball size, and maybe some isolated sporadic tennis ball size within North Texas region. But further to the north, with that very intense mesoscale convective systems, definitely not out of the question to have some sporadic golf ball, even mixed in some tennis ball size hail up into this region up here. And we do have an elevated tornado risk as well. So across Oklahoma and portions of Colorado, that's where I feel is the highest probability. If you are going to see a spin up tornado tonight, it would be within this sector, especially within the Woodward region, back into the Enid area, and also into Stillwater and portions of Tulsa. And that would actually include the Oklahoma City area. This would likely be into the evening time frame, going in towards the midnight time frame. So it's a very active evening ahead. You got 2 rounds of severe storms, the one further to the south across Texas, and then the one furthest to the north. And this is all going to congeal and head east southeastward into the wee hours of the morning, heading towards the southeast, and a heavy rain event really setting up across portions of the Florida Panhandle as well. But We do have a couple more days for the sale for Father's Day on the Tempest Weatherflow weather station. If you haven't taken advantage of one of these, I highly recommend it. It's an all solar system. It is the best weather station on the market. It's a 5-in-1 system. The coolest thing about it is it only takes 10 minutes to install. And I do have a discount code for all you dads out there. The discount code is for dads, and it gives $40 off and free shipping. So I will have that link in the description below so you can click on it between now and Father's Day and possibly order one for yourself. Well, let's take a look at the breakdown as far as on the precipitation front over the next 24 hours. So again, we have that trough up here in portions of New England. That's going to bring some of the cooler rain showers up in that region, especially highlighted over portions of Maine. But in the middle of the country where those convective complexes are going to lie, we are going to be seeing mesoscale convective systems kind of blow up east of portions, start originating into the Denver region, and then flying east southeastward back into portions of Kansas, but especially into the Oklahoma region. And then we also have convective complexes coming across West Texas that will move across portions of North Texas. And then we have the setup across the east southeastward trajectory across portions of Arkansas into Louisiana, into Mississippi, into portions of Alabama, and especially into Florida. Again, gets hit hard. I know Pensacola the other night got hit hard with very intense rain. And unfortunately, these are training convective complexes, folks. So some of these isolated setups could get hit again with multiple inch totals in some of these isolated areas. Easily 5, 6, maybe even 10 inch totals is definitely not out of the question. With all the high water vapor that you have to work with these systems. But further, heading into next week, I mean, the heat is going to be the real deal for a good part of Texas. It's mainly just the higher humidity out here. The temperatures are already high enough, but if you combine that with just higher dew points, it makes all these areas around in the deep south and much of southeastern portions of Texas in just dangerous heat. Some of these places hit 120 degrees heat index yesterday, and that just continues really all well into the next week as this ridge continues to build. And as it does, it's going to continue to lift further north, and that's going to be putting the squash on the severe threat for a good part of Texas, but also shifted off into portions of the southeast. And I think that really originates starting tomorrow. So we're still going to have some of those convective complexes, but the one that's going to be coming out of Oklahoma tonight is going to continue east southeast bound. So by the time we get into the daytime hours tomorrow in the heat of the afternoon, storms are going to be erupting again around this area as the ridge will start to take over much of Texas. It'll be up and over the ridge. And then we looked at really intense storms across portions of Arkansas, back into Louisiana, getting into Mississippi, back into portions of Mobile again. And that would dive east southeast bound into portions of Florida. And again, the main risk, guys, it's almost like a broken record. Very large hail with these particular systems. It's all really El Nino driven induced, but these areas are favored into East Texas, coming off that convective complexes from Oklahoma. East Texas would be the favorite area, back into southern portions of Arkansas, getting into Louisiana, and heading into Jackson area with the highest probability of seeing the largest hailstones out of this particular event. I know Mississippi came in with almost a 5-inch hailstone the other night. And we've seen numerous times where we've seen just crazy hail like this. And we still have those possibilities of seeing some of those huge, baseball to softball type size hail with this type of atmosphere, folks. So the next 48 hours, here's where the rain's going to lie. So we're still going to have that trough across portions of New England. For much of the mid-Atlantic states and a good part of Ohio Valley region is going to be high and dry. And it's really where these convective complexes are going to set up, and then fishtail down east southeastward where all the rain and the heavier rains are going to be. And I do feel like the heaviest rains are going to be along the coast, along the the I-20 corridor region, areas where they have just a lot more get back, juice to work with for the closer into the Gulf of Mexico. But heading in the next week, things get interesting for parts of the West because it gets actually even colder than what you are now. So it's going to be downright chilly up there as you wake up starting on Tuesday morning. Even some record low temperatures could not be out of the question for areas, waking up well into the 40s up here for a good part of Washington and Oregon, and even 30s in some of these higher elevations. And you can't even rule out some of these areas could even actually get below freezing. But you notice the middle of the country where the heat is, folks. Yeah, that ridge is going to be really dominating over Texas, but it's really going to be lifting northbound. And it's going to go all the way to Canada, folks. And that's a low temperature of 71 degrees all the way to the Canadian border. I don't need to tell you, that is well above average, folks. That's not normal waking up to a 71 degree temperature for this time of year, but that's exactly what's going to happen because that's where the ridge is going to be most present over the middle part of the country, with some weakness in the ridge across further north, across the Great Lakes, as well as in a good part of New England. But heading into, if we take it a step beyond, that's essentially what's going to happen. So beyond and towards the 21st and the 26th time frame, the ridge is going to be continuing to lift, and eventually it's going to be shifting on the northern side eastbound. So that cooler conditions you're seeing right now across a good part of New England are going to be replaced with well above average temperatures, while much of the southeast does not get hit with the ridge, but get hit with all the heavier rains, and the cloud cover and the daily rains are going to be over this area is going to keep them well below average side, while much of the trough is going to be highlighted over the west coast, and you're going to continue to remain on the much cooler side out there for much of next week. And again, that puts where the instability is and the weakness in the ridge, compounding with some really tropical juice down there that's going to be feeding in from the Caribbean. That puts mainly Florida with an elevated flood risk pretty much all week long next week, as you get just hit one storm after another with daily rains in these areas, especially into central and portions of the Florida Panhandle. But it's all about the heat for the middle of the country, and especially Texas, as all you're getting that oppressive heat right now, and that just continues to up the ante and intensify even more. So it's a compounding effect to the body, not just the actual temperature, but the actual heat index, what it actually feels to your body. Those are going to be extreme, folks. So I expect heat advisories to continue all week long, and in some cases excessive heat warnings with heating disease in the 115 plus range. So that's some dangerous stuff. So definitely stay hydrated down there. So as we extend the view and head towards the 23rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 26th of the month, again, it's kind of the same deal, folks. You're going to have the ridge lifting in the middle of the country. It's likely going to be pushed back just a tad bit, but you still have a weakness across portions of Oregon and California. But again, the most instability is going to be putting across a good part of the southeast, where the most active weather will be by then. So if we take a look at the overall tropics, there's two things that really stand out. First, this red shaded area, that's an abundance amount of precipitable water index feeding into this region, with these kind of tropical type waves feed in and then push into Florida. But you also notice this convective complex too. That's complements of a very intense tropical wave that's actually coming off the coast of Africa now, that could be over portions of the Lesser Antilles by the time we head into Friday of this upcoming Friday. So if we take a look at the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, it's got a 70% chance that this thing's going to form into some sort of tropical entity. And if it does, it would actually take the name Brett, Tropical Storm Brett, if it does come to fruition. And this probably will be a named storm by the time we get to the end, by the time we get to the end of next week. And it's likely going to be continuing westbound and be near the Lesser Antilles by the time around that, Friday, Saturday, time frame. So, but if we extend it even further, we look at that time frame going into portions of say the 26th of the month, we're still going to have these little active waves that come across the Caribbean. So if you got plans, or if you live down in the Caribbean, portions of Jamaica and the Turks and Caicos, getting into the Yucatan, back into good part of Florida, we're going to have these tropical waves. And I think this, if it does form, Brett, most ensembles actually going to be lifting it, taking out the sea, but we're going to have subtle tropical waves that come underneath it that are not tropical entity, but still have an abundance amount of moisture with it, that feed back into and eventually highlight and make it into Florida. So I think Florida gets crushed with heavy rainfall over the next 10 days. And so if we look at some of these ensemble member guidance going forward, you can see where all the bullseye is going to be. Once you have that weakness in the ridge, that's going to push all the activity further off into the east. So it really highlights Georgia, back into Alabama, back into the Carolinas, but especially into the Florida, Florida panhandle, with very intense heavy rains really all week long. And the ensembles are just hinting at the same thing, right? So you've got that weakness in the weakness where the ridge is going to be dominating for much of this region, but the weakness is just to the right of that, and that puts the northwest flow with the heaviest precipitation across a good part of the southeast and also portions of the northeast as well. And then the same thing for the Canadian guidance, right? So this is all three ensemble members. That first was the European. Now this is actually the Canadian, kind of implying the same thing, with the bullseye really highlighted over the southeast, and the GFS ensembles imply the same thing over the next 10 days, really highlighting these areas, combined with the weakness in the ridge and combined with the tropical juice that's coming in out of the Caribbean. That really intensifies the heavier rains and really focused on a good part of the southeast, but especially into Florida, where we're probably going to be seeing numerous flood watches all week long. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned for live coverage starting at 6 o'clock tonight for the Oklahoma and Texas event. Again, I'll be doing live coverage for the entire duration event into the evening time frame. So catch the latest update when I protect you before and after the storm.